What's going on? We have another Dynasty Pros Devy show. I'm Andy, and it's just me tonight, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. We have a jam-packed episode today. We're gonna cover the 2023 freshman recap class. Who went belly up? Who did good? All that and more after the intro. Hope everyone is doing well. Like I said, this is a solo show here, so hopefully it'll be entertaining. Hopefully, we're gonna cover the freshman class here. And first, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, comment. Try to comment back on here. But we're gonna talk about the freshman class. So let's get right into it. We're gonna start with the freshman quarterback class. Now, this coming in, it was a very highly touted class. You had a few five-star guys and a lot of four-star guys. These are guys you probably spent, some of you probably spent first round sub picks on, probably second round sub picks on, and most of them didn't get any playing time. Now, we're going to start with Arch Manning. He went to Texas. He'll likely be sitting behind Quinn Ewers next year, which isn't a bad thing. If you've seen any of his tape or if you watch any of the Dynasty Pros every show, I've talked about him a lot. And he came from a small high school program in New Orleans, in Louisiana, where the competition wasn't always the best. So for him to be able to sit for 2 years and learn, it is a good thing. We did get to see him towards the end of the season. He got a little bit of run and he showed himself to be an adequate quarterback. So the future is definitely bright. And if you have him, definitely stock up. The next one is Dante Moore. He got some playing time at UCLA, got benched. All in all, it was an okay effort. It wasn't what we had hoped for. He was the most experienced quarterback of this freshman class, and he was the reason why some people had him as a quarterback one. He now transfers to Oregon. He'll be sitting behind Dylan Gabriel, and he'll get his run in 2 years from now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He wanted to go to a situation where he can learn and develop, and he goes to Oregon where it's going to be a high powered offense. They're always going to have good receivers. They're going to have a good run game. So if you have him, I would expect you're kind of happy about that. Number three is Malachi Nelson, and it's not the best, right? We loved him because he was with USC. He was gonna get the play after Caleb Williams, but then all of a sudden, after the season ended, they start to kind of flirt with the portal. They were entertaining offers with Will Howard, Cam Ward, DJU, all these other guys started to come in, Dylan Gabriel, and they weren't really able to get anyone. And Malachi Nelson decided to enter the portal. The schools that he's been linked to now, there's no new updates just because everything is kind of closed until after the playoffs. But it was reported Cal, TCU, believe other G5 schools, Tulane. The landing spots aren't ideal. It seems like he wants to get playing time and he wants to play right away. So that's the reason for that. Not ideal landing spots, I guess you could say. We'll have to see if Lincoln Riley was okay with him, entering in the portal and all that. You kind of have to be a little leery. So if you do have him, it is a little bit of a worry. Next one on the list is Nico Imalivia. Don't know how to pronounce the last name. I apologize if I get that wrong. He is going to be the guy at Tennessee. He's going to be starting the bowl game. He fits Hypo system to a T. So I would say all systems go if you have him. He should have a good account in the bowl game, and they have a full off season. with a bevy of receivers that have coming in. Evan Stewart's been linked there. That'll be an interesting spot, but whoever ends up there, we expect at the very least to have some good CFF production. Speaking of CFF production, next on the list is Jackson Arnold for Oklahoma. He's going to be starting the bowl game, and we expect him to put up numbers for the CFF side. His arm is good, not great. He has good accuracy. So if you're holding him as a Devy asset, you do have some question marks, but he's going to have 4 years potentially as a starter at Oklahoma, and he'll get every single chance to prove his worth. Next on the list is Jaden Rashada. I do like Rashada more than others. He did get to play in a couple of games at Arizona State, and he will be able to preserve his red shirt. And so next year, he's going to be vying for that competition with Sam Levitt. And I would suspect Jaden Rashada would lead it, if not win it outright, by the time spring camp wraps up. The next two haven't really got any play. Eli Holstein, he got over recruited this year with Julian Saying for Alabama, so likely he transfers out. The next one is Christopher Vazina for Clemson. He too hasn't gotten much playing time. Clemson didn't really recruit anyone over him, so one would suspect he's the next guy in line, but do we really want anyone at Clemson? Avery Johnson's playing the bowl game right now for Kansas State, and he showed himself quite well. He's someone that we've liked all season and someone that we targeted late in startups and C2C sub drafts. He's going to get the full ratings next year for Kansas State. He should put up really good CFF numbers. As far as him being a refined quarterback, he does need some improvement in that aspect, but what he brings that we all love is the rushing ability. And to round out the top 10 is Austin Novosad for Oregon. Likely he's going to transfer out. Bo Nix is playing in the bowl game. If they do get a big lead over Liberty, you might see Austin Novosad get some playing time, but likely he transfers out. I can't really see him beating Dante Moore for the competition. Now we're going to move over to the running backs. The running backs, number one of the class was CJ Baxter. He was actually named the starter to begin the season. As we all know, Jonathan Brooks took over that job. But if you have CJ Baxter, in your Devy or C2C leagues, I would expect you were happy with what you got the freshman season. He's going to be the lead back next year. Now, they do bring in a couple of incoming freshmen, but I don't think they're good enough to take over the position. So I believe CJ Baxter will have the lead role. Jonathan Brooks is coming back from his injury. He probably won't be at 100% once the season starts. And you have Jadon Blue. He has not entered the portal, but if he has another big showing, he can either choose to stay and play in a platoon with CJ Baxter, or he can transfer out. Justice Haynes is someone he's going to get the run next year. We all know at Alabama, you have to wait your turn. And as a true freshman, he got a little bit of run, but what we saw in the spring game, where I believe he got 3 or 4 touchdowns, he was used as a runner, used out of the receiving aspect. So he's someone that brings that versatility. At Alabama this year, they had a room full of upperclassmen. They'll clear out next year. Jam Miller will still be there. We'll see how that goes, but I would expect Justice Haynes to get the majority of the load next year. For Texas A&M, you have Ruben Owens. He was okay. He's an older prospect, I believe, coming in. This year, he was already 20. He's an older prospect. We've seen a mass exodus at Texas A&M, so we'll have to see if he decides to stay or if he, opts out and transfers and goes to a different program. Next is Richard Young. Richard Young, he's behind Justice Haynes, so he won't get much playing time. The Alabama backfield's pretty loaded, so we have to see how they sort themselves out. Young projects more as a receiving profile back, so he may have a role at third down. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, he's someone that's gotten a lot of love lately. There's that clip of him running a route in practice where he absolutely just toyed with the the defender. He's someone that's going to take over that lead role next year for Notre Dame. I do like him for that spot. They bring in a new offensive coordinator, the guy from LSU, Denbrock. He runs a RPO type system. And I think Love fits that really well. So we'll have to see how that goes next year. They do bring in a good true freshman running back. I believe his name is Keedron Young. So that should be a lightning and thunder combo. So I would expect Love to get the majority of the workload. Jeremiah Cobb from Auburn. He got a little bit of playing time. He's still going to be behind some guys, so we have to see how he develops in the offseason. Kijek Rascana for Ole Miss. He was someone that I personally really liked. Although he's going to be playing behind Quinshawn Judkins, I thought he had a chance at a third down role this year. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but next year he'll have a full year to kind of get into a groove and kind of work his way in. I still do like him as a third down receiving back next year. I believe he led all incoming freshman running backs with, I believe, 42 receptions, I believe. So he does have some good soft hands. So I do want to see him I want to see him get on the field next year. Dante Dowdle, he is entered the portal. I don't believe he's named anywhere he wants to go. Originally committed to Oregon, we knew he was going to sit behind a couple of guys. I believe he visited Nebraska. I think Nebraska would be a decent landing spot for them. So we'll have to see how he goes, but he's one of those bigger bruiser backs. Next one, speaking of bigger bruising backs, is Mark Fletcher out of Miami. Miami grabbed a couple of guys in his freshman class, so I would expect him to get the goal line work and, not much more. I'm not too high on him. I know SC from here, he likes him a lot. But to me, he's more of a bigger plotting back. And the 10th back is Roderick Robinson, the second for Georgia. He had, I believe it was a high ankle sprain, so he missed some time. But when he was on the field, he did look good. Georgia has a loaded backfield, so we have to see how that kind of plays out. But Georgia running backs, they're always going to reload. So it's just a matter of can you get that 1A to 1B position next year. We know that ETN just transferred in from Florida. So I believe Roger Robinson has the upper hand on Branson Robinson. I believe they're going to try to bring along slowly. And then Georgia has Andrew Paul. I believe Kendall Milton has one more year left. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he might be there for another year. And then they have a trio of freshmen who might not get much run just because of how loaded that backfield is. But if you have any of these running backs, I think you're better off with this crop than the one coming in. So let's kind of stray off a little bit here since, this is a solo pod. So I can kind of maverick my way around this. If you're in a C2C sub draft or in a startup, the true freshman that's coming in for the 2024 class, the running back group, isn't the greatest. The top back is coming Quentin Martin, I believe that's his name. He's going to Penn State, and then Taylor Tatum for Oklahoma. Those are the top two guys consensus wise, and then you kind of have a big drop off from them. The running back itself isn't a strong group. If you're in a position in a C2C sub draft this summer and you're in the first 3 rounds, I would say go wide receivers. That way you can build up that position, and then possibly in the middle of the season, if the receivers start to pop off, or if that position, if it's just flooded with value, you can trade from the wide receiver spot and probably target one of these running backs from this freshman class. Someone that you can buy low right now that I personally would buy is Kijek Riscano for Ole Miss. Talked about him a little bit early on. Yeah, he's going to have to play behind second fiddle to Quinshawn Judkins, but with running backs, you only need 1 year of production to get to the NFL. Now, Ole Miss lost out on They were in the running for Q and Lacey. He ended up at Missouri. Ole Miss was in on him. They lose that, so that's a big positive for Riscano. So if you're looking to buy low on a running back from this list, it would be Riscano. He is literally one injury away of Quinshon Judkins from being the lead back at Ole Miss. Ole Miss brings back a very veteran group at the quarterback and the receiver position, so he could plug in and he could play right away. So he's someone that I would target from this list. If I'm trying to sell anyone, I would probably sell CJ Baxter. He is the name guy. He's the top guy from the class. Yes, Texas produces backs at the next level, and then that's all the more reason to sell him. You can probably get a lot from him. I would say you could probably get a top four sub pick this year for your C2C league, along with maybe another Devy asset or a possible middle to high CFF kind of a production guy for CJ Baxter. If you're able to flip him for that, I would definitely do that. Let's move on to the wide receivers. This was a big receiving class that we had high expectations for. Number one is Zachariah Branch for USC. He played the slot pretty much all season. He returned kicks and punts. He had an okay freshman season. I don't think it was expected for him to produce much more than that. He did lead the trio of Makai Lemon and Deuce Robinson. I would expect next year that Branch takes over that lead role for the wide receiver one. Miller Moss showed out last night as we're recording this on the 27th. He showed out today's 28th. USC's been linked to Will Howard. Will Howard's kind of played around with, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. So if it is Miller Moss, that could be a good thing for Zachariah Branch. I'm not the biggest Will Howard guy, so if he does go in there, it'll be interesting to see that USC offense. The second guy on the list is Jurion Dickey for Oregon. Jurion Dickey, we all had high hopes for him. My issue with him was he was in a room full of guys. I couldn't see a way for him to get any meaningful playing time. Now, it came out as of late that he had a torn labrum, so it took him quite a little bit to recover from that and then to get in shape. Now, he's a guy that you can consider as a buy low or possibly a sell high. With that news of that torn labrum, I'm sure there's some managers that are willing to buy back in. So if you do have him and you don't want to risk it, I can see you trying to sell that. But with how the Oregon wide receiver room is pretty open, he projects to be the top three next year. So he projects to have a starting role. Now, we don't know about Evan Stewart and his landing spot. He's been linked to, I believe it was Oregon, Tennessee, USC, and I think it was one other I think it was Florida State. So he's been linked to those programs. I would personally love to see him in Eugene at Oregon. That's also probably the best landing spot for him as well, just because he has a super senior in Dylan Gabriel throwing him the ball. Oregon runs a very wide concept that it's based on space. And they get their playmakers in space. They get them to just create after the catch. And that's what Evan Stewart does. So if Evan Stewart does end up in Oregon, I can see Jurion Dickey playing off of him on the other side. And defenses might try to shade coverage towards Stewart's side, and that could lead to Dickey getting targets. So he is an interesting player that I'm not fully giving up on, but I don't have any shares of him. So make that of what you will. Jonte Cook is the next guy. He is, I would expect him to be a top three in that Texas wide receiver room. Now, we don't fully know who else is coming in, but we know Matthew Golden is already there. I'm a big Jonte Cook guy. He was my wide receiver one of the class this year. He is a guy that can create in space. His lateral movement is really good. He's someone that I'm looking forward to for next year. Quinn Ewers coming back actually helps him. Quinn Ewers has deep ball passing accuracy issues. That's just get that out of the way. So with Jonte Cook running the short and intermediate routes, I believe Eagles will probably target him a lot more than say Matthew Golden will coming into next year. Next on the list is Hakeem Williams for Florida State. He's done okay. Florida State's kind of in flux right now. They're down between Cam Ward and DJU. From all indication, Cam Ward's going to pick his school between Florida State and Miami. And then whoever doesn't get Cam Ward is going to get DJU from all indications. With Florida State, I would prefer Cam Ward to go to Florida State. Now, DJU, I'm not the biggest fan of his. I'm also not the biggest fan of Cam Ward. Let's just be honest. But for Florida State, I believe Cam Ward would be a better fit. Florida State has a lot of young receivers coming in. They haven't hit anybody of note in the portal. So if they can land Evan Stewart, that would be a big win for Florida State. But Hakeem Williams, he's a really raw athlete. He's a physical athlete. He's a freak. His testing is gonna be off the charts when he does get into the combine. But as a receiver, he is very raw. So we do need some more development from him. Next on the list is Brandon Innes from Ohio State. At the beginning of the year, we'll just talk about Brandon Innes and Cardinal Tate all at once here. Beginning of the year, Cardinal Tate was getting all the love. He enrolled early, got to play in the spring game, caught that big pass. It was on all the highlights of ESPN and Twitter and or X or whatever. And Brandon Innes wasn't able to enroll early, so he kind of missed out on all that. He got to enroll for fall camp. He was playing catch up, and he never found his way onto the playing field. With Ohio State, traditionally, they do rotate and sub guys in. So when I was looking at this receiving room, I was looking at Carnell Tate projects to be the X, so he should slot in behind Marvin Harrison, whereas Brandon Innes kind of plays the Y, and he also plays a slot. So I could see Innes filling in for Egbuka and for Julian Fleming. That never panned out, but he did get some run in a couple of games. In his bowl game coming up, he should be one of the three starters at the wide receiver position. So we'll have to see how he does. I believe if you have Cardinal Tate, you're a lot more comfortable with where you're at as far as the two receivers for Ohio State. Now they do bring in two high profile wide receivers that we have to consider. Jeremiah Smith and Mylan Graham. They bring in those two 5-star plus athletes, and it'll be interesting to see how the receiving room plays out. I believe not only is Ohio State hoping this, but I believe Emeka Egbuka is also hoping this. I'm hoping that Egbuka has a big game, shows to the NFL, hey, I've just been hurt all year, but I'm back. I'm still the same guy. And then he goes to the NFL, because if Egbuka comes back for his senior season, it creates a logjam at that wide receiver position. And then we're going to have a lot of question marks on how that's going to get filled out. So if you have anyone from the Ohio State receiving room in your C2C or Devy leagues, you're hoping Emeka Egbuka goes off for 12 catches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns, where he can just, sign off, drop the mic, and head off to the NFL. Next on the list is Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon got, I believe it was 2 catches last night for 75 yards. I stopped watching it after the first half, so he might have gotten more, but he was the one that I was kind of worried about. There was some talks about him playing cornerback and everything, but it appears it was just an injury type issue, and they just put him back there. So if you have Makai Lemon, you should be safe with that. Jalen Hale for Alabama. He played a couple of good games. He is someone that I didn't really envision a way for him to get on the field this year. Now, that Alabama receiving room never really panned out. It was just Isaiah Bond and then guys rotating in of who could make plays. So he found his way in there. Ryan Williams is an incoming freshman that can't technically sign until February just because he reclassified. He was in the 25 class. He reclassified to the 24. He has given his verbal to Alabama, but he's supposed to be making a visit to Auburn, and Auburn's trying to make a late push to flip him. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But next on the list is Noah Rogers for Ohio State. He's just the odd guy out. He's talented, but there's too many guys for him. He'll have to enter the portal eventually if he wants to get any run. I just don't see it happening at Ohio State. The last one is Malachi Coleman for Nebraska. He was someone that he was the top prospect in the state of Nebraska, and he was the main grab for Matt Rule's first class, and he did all right. I believe he had over 100 yards receiving for the year. I believe he'll be Dylan Raiola's wide receiver one next year. They should build a great chemistry this offseason, and we'll have to see, what happens and where they go. Now, for the rest of the show, I'm just gonna, just shoot from the hip. So I'll just talk about some, still some freshmen. I'll talk about some sleepers that I was high on and hit, and then some that I didn't. One guy that I want to talk about that did hit is Kevin Concepcion. If you follow me on Twitter or X or anything, I've been a KC guy for some time now. I've been on record with it was in August for the Campus to Canton Campus Life Pod, and I was on there, and I made a point to get an extra guy mentioned, and it was KC. He was someone that I absolutely loved his tape, loved everything that I saw about him. One thing that I love is he's just a football player. He played defense, played the return game. He did whatever it took to help the team. And one tidbit that I'll give, I'm going to kind of go in deep here, but when you're watching film or scouting or whatever it is on these incoming freshmen, the 5-star guys are really easy. What they do just absolutely stands out. So that's not hard to watch. The 4-star guys, you can see traits there. So that one you kind of have to watch a couple of times, but it's not very difficult. When you go into the three-star guys, which is what Casey was, you have to see what they excel at. You have to see what is a trait that projects to the next level where he can see the field early. And he was someone that I saw ran very crisp routes, was a really good route runner. He was very nuanced in his game. And that's what I attach myself when I think about KC. So you have to think of it that way. All these lower guys that a lot of these guys are a lot of these analysts or whatever are wanting to hit on every year. You have to find a trait that's going to get them onto the field. And that goes the same way for when you're drafting in your C2C leagues, in your sub leagues or sub drafts. When you go into 10th, 11th, 12th round guys, you're dealing with G5 guys. You're dealing with 3-star guys that you don't know who they are. So when you do watch their tape, you have to see what they excel at and how they can get on the field early. And that's what I saw with KC. Now, some guys that I was kind of high on that I kind of missed, Aiden Williams for Ole Miss. In the composites, he was a high 4-star guy. I thought he could find his way onto the playing field. He was not an early enrollee. He got in pretty late. The camp news was really positive, so I gave it a shot. I took him in a couple of leagues. In his first game, I believe he had 6 targets. For the rest of the season, he might have gotten 6 combined. But he's someone that I missed. I'm rolling through the 2023 list here to see who else. I wasn't as high on Jaden Greathouse as a lot of people. He had that one good game. I believe it was against Navy in Ireland. I think he had, I don't know, I think it was like 2 touchdowns, and people were going off like he was the next big thing. He was not anyone that I really liked. Just I thought he wasn't a good mover. Um, Someone that I kind of like that I was wrong on is DJ Braswell for South Carolina. I thought he had a clear pathway. I thought he could play, kind of work himself into the rotation. South Carolina didn't really have anyone of note. Um, but he didn't really do anything. And then South Carolina went and grabbed like 4 guys from the portal and recruited 2 guys. So he's toast. Isaiah Agustave for Arkansas, I was pretty high on. Um, he didn't get much run, and I believe he closed the year as a starter. He did not enter the portal, so he will probably try to fight for the starting position next year. Um, Trying to go through the list here. There wasn't a lot of guys that I was too high on. I'm gonna go into quarterbacks. I was high on Malachi Nelson. I was wrong on that. Um, Malachi Nelson was my quarterback one of the class. I like this tape. I thought, he would get to learn under Lincoln Riley and try to progress. So he was someone that I was wrong on. Um, Trying to go further down the list here. Aiden Childs, we didn't mention. I just took the top 10 of the consensus. There's some guys that I didn't get to mention. Aiden Childs, I was someone that I liked. I thought he had a clear chance at playing his second year at Oregon State. He's ending up at Michigan State. I think that's a good landing spot for him. I guess, since I'm on the quarterback list, I'll just go off some other names that were on here. Kenny Minchie, I believe he's starting the bowl game. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he is. So we'll have to see. I know he's not going to start next year because they brought in Riley Leonard. But if he's able to show out, he could probably stay, and Notre Dame can stop with the portal guys that they bring in every year. Lincoln Kienholz, he was the 15th ranked quarterback here for Ohio State. I don't see a way of him getting on the field. Austin Mack behind him at 16. Ricky Collins, LSU 17. So, that's pretty much the roundup for the freshman class. Since this is probably the last episode of 2023, so I'm going to go on some 2024 predictions and some bold takes. My QB1 for the 2025 class has been and always will be Garrett Nussmeier. Been that way since August. He's going to get his chance in the bowl game. We'll see how he does. He's been my QB1 for that class. He's just someone that I really love when you watch his tape. The LSU receiving room, it's going to be an open room. So we're going to have to see if they sort themselves out. I would love to see if Evan Stewart were to end up there, but it doesn't appear that it'll happen. So we'll have to see. I'm also a big Caden Salter guy. I think he's a true Devy asset for Liberty. I don't think he'll leave next year. He should stay for his entire duration of eligibility. But he's someone that I've seen make NFL throws. And for the quarterback position, when you see a guy make the NFL throw, he has it in him. So then it's all about, coaching. It's all about doing it more and more and getting more consistent at it. I've watched a lot of tape of Salter, and I do think Salter is a Devy asset. What else am I willing to do a bold take on? Let's take a look. I know for the incoming freshman class, my receiver that I'm high on. So I guess you can say my sleeper wide receiver, kind of the next KC guy, is Day Farmer. He is going to West Virginia. He is someone that is out of the top 300, but he's someone that has really good hip mobility, really slippery, good yak creativity, someone that I can see playing in the slot right away at West Virginia, and someone that can easily get 30, 40 receptions in his freshman year. Um, the freshman incoming class, I'm lower on at the quarterback position. I'm lower on at the receiving position. And I think the wide receiver group is extremely deep. And if you're in a C2C sub draft, you should definitely be targeting wide receivers. I would say in the first 4 rounds, if not the first 5 rounds. And then from there, play it by ear. I know we had a year in review kind of an episode on Tuesday where, I mentioned go deep at wide receiver, build your roster at the wide receiver position, have so much value at that bucket that you can trade from the wide receiver bucket into the running back bucket, get someone even from the quarterback bucket. One kind of trend I would like to see happen is not taking quarterbacks in the first round of a supplemental. I think they're too volatile, and you can work your way in getting these Devy quarterbacks in trades later on. Like when Dante Moore got benched, you probably could have got him at a much cheaper cost than it would have been likely you would have spent a first round pick on him in the supplementals. You probably could have maybe traded him for a third or a fourth and a CFF asset. So something like that is something that I want to see for C2C leagues in these sub drafts. Yes, the quarterback is that position that touches the ball every time, but it's a volatile position. We saw that this year of how volatile it is, and you're better off going receivers early and then getting running backs probably later on. See if you can hit with them. Um, so that's all I have for the show. I do have some other pertinent news here. As far as Dynasty Pros go, as some of you may know, I am the owner and the creator of the Devy Digest. And with Dynasty Pros, I've been putting out Devy Digest player profiles every week and getting you ready for your rookie drafts. And I've been doing content in season for Devy stock up, stock down type of deal. All of my Devy content going forward will be with the league winners. You can find the Devy Digest exclusively with the league winners. Also, I will be having my own show on YouTube under the league winners. I'll still be here with Dynasty Pros in a different concept. I will be doing a weekly video audio version of the NFL rookies that are coming up. So I'll still get you guys ready for your rookie drafts. So you'll still have the video and audio content from me here at the Dynasty Pros. I'll be doing a weekly content. Probably each week will probably be maybe 5 or 6 prospects. I'll go in depth about them. It'll kind of be like an audio version of the Devy Digest in a way. And then I'll be contributing on the NFL side with the Dynasty Pros. I'll be doing some Dynasty content there, probably in the off season. But if you've ever enjoyed myself on here on the Dynasty Pros Devy show, I will be having my own solo show with the league winners. That's going to be coming up. As always, you can follow me at Andy_fam1. I will be here next Tuesday to host the final Dynasty Pros Devy show. It'll be my final show. Tommy and SC and Justin will still be here for you. They'll take care of your Devy needs. And every once in a while, if they need me to pinch hit, I'll come on in. I love everyone at the Dynasty Pros. So this isn't a goodbye. This is just a different form that you'll be, consuming my content. Like I said, I'll still be here. I believe it's after the Super Bowl will be that following week will be the first episode of this rookie content that I'm doing for Dynasty Pros, where I'm gonna cover probably 5 rookies a week, and that will lead you up until the NFL draft and to your rookie drafts, and then I'll probably do one article a week with Dynasty Pros, doing some Dynasty content on the NFL side. But like I said, all the Devy content, all the C2C content that you've enjoyed with the Devy Digest and by me here at the Dynasty Pros, it'll all be found with the league winners. Go subscribe to League Winners. Go subscribe to Dynasty Pros. This isn't a battle of one or the other. I'm working with both. It's just in a different aspect. All the Devy stuff will be with, the league winners. So if you enjoyed that, you'll get all the content there, and all of that. But if you reached this far, 41 minutes in, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for the 2023 season. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, for liking, for commenting, and everything. So next Tuesday, we will be back with the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. And go ahead and subscribe. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify, give us a rate and review. It's greatly appreciated. Have a happy new year and a safe one.